Is an economic crash imminent? Well, I think it is. I called it a few months ago. I got a very special guest on today, and we're going to talk about why it's time to buckle up. I wouldn't buy anything big anytime soon. We'll talk about it in a second on the Armchair MBA. So tonight we have a very, very, very special guest. RJ Roger of the Black Hand Print Mafia, fellow MBA, fellow top podcaster in his space, and a bourbon and scotch extraordinaire. RJ Roger, welcome to the Armchair MBA. How you doing today?
Good, man. I'm doing good. Thanks for the invite, Tom.
All right. We hate to be the bearer of bad news. We're going to start off with a little salute. I'm doing a little Buffalo Trace. We're gonna need it for what we're gonna talk about. What do you got? What do you got?
Got a big one here too, Tom. I'm drinking Dewar's White Label, and I hope all your listeners have something because they're gonna need it after we give them all this bad information.
Yeah, you ain't shit. And salute, my friend, and salute.
Thank you, brother. I'm drinking neat. Are you on the rocks? It looks like
I'm on the rocks. I get crap for it, but I just like on the rocks. I like a little chilled. I like it. Some people put cold water in it. It's weird. I can't put cold water in it because I think it's sacrilege, but I'll put rocks and let it sit. I guess it's psychological, you know?
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm always a neat guy. So
drop your links below. How do you take your bourbon and bourbon whiskey? Is it neat on the rocks? Don't make fun of me if you're a neat guy, but drop your comments below. All right, so we're gonna start. I did a podcast 2 months ago. I said the stock market will crash. MBA speaks. Roughly 2 months ago. And since then, we're in correction. Well over 20% down for the NASDAQ. I think it was like 13, 14% for the S&P. The Dow's down close to 20%. We're pretty much in the correction territory. And now we're kind of getting into recession. And what I predict is a crash. So we're going to start it off. I'm going to first talk about the economy. So RJ, let's talk a little bit about the economy. And first out of the gate, inflation, right? It's a secret tax. Talk us about what you've been experiencing and talk us about what you think Americans are experiencing today.
Well, it's kind of a twofold thing. See, a lot of people, I don't think many, like your everyday consumer really understands like what that's probably the biggest threat to everything right now.
Yep.
And what I would say, and it's tricky in many ways because a lot of wages have gone up substantially since the pandemic.
Correct.
Just even in the organization that I work with, we've substantially increased wages.
Yeah.
And and you have that political divide where there's some truth on both sides. It's always that fine line of how do you increase wages without destabilizing the market or driving up prices,
Correct.
So a lot of people have substantial pay increases, but they're buying less and struggling more because of everything costs so much more. Home values through the roof. Rates are going up again now. Fuel costs is very high. Most of your everyday goods and services that we're all buying, everything is up. So I think a lot of the wage increases were artificial. I think people would rather go back to making less under what the old market prices used to be.
Well, that's the thing, RJ. So you look at kind of the secret tax, right? So I'm funny. I'll overspend or spend, but when it comes to gas, I know it's like all the same. So I like to pay with cash, and I'm cheap. I don't want to pay that 4 cents more a gallon. So I was at an Exxon because I have some Exxon stock, which is doing pretty well for me these days. And I say, okay, hey, fill it. Here's $30 regular because it's an older car. I got 3 cars, my everyday car, and it only fills up half the tank of a Nissan. And I'm like, that used to fill up 75% and used to fill up all of it when it was $2 a gallon. So now I'm saying to myself, holy shit, you know what? Now for me to go from A to B is now 20, 30% more, which cuts into our wallets. So right off the bat, inflation, higher interest rates, right? The banks have to borrow more from the federal government. I think the Fed's going to continue to increase rates to match inflation, and I don't think they're going to lower them. People are like, well, why aren't they lowering rates? They can't, because the cost of borrowing is more, so they have to raise rates to make sure you borrow more. So now when you get a new home, not only are you going to overpay, but you're going to overpay in your rate. Rents are through the roof, right? Because the cap rates, if you own an investment property, are 4 or 3%, you're losing money. Now you either got to raise rates or you got to give the keys to the bank. So inflation, I agree, is probably one of the stalwarts that are jamming us up economically. Let's talk a little bit about the labor shortage. People think like it's a good economy. We're only 3.6% unemployment. Anything below like 4 or 5% is actually somewhat unhealthy for the economy. Give us your thoughts on a labor shortage.
Well, you know, like a lot of more than like sometimes I struggle with even understanding, because now like I can speak professionally, like in the business world, the difficulty right now in finding staff. Correct. It's unbelievable. I mean, like the quality of the employees that companies are bringing in now is pretty much all the quality employees are already employed, and you're taking them from somebody else. But the unemployed, the unemployed is at least from what I'm finding, the people who you wouldn't typically hire anyway. A lot of companies are hiring talent that they typically would probably not even take. Correct. But they're taking them because either A, they can get them for a better price, or B, it's the only option that they have. But this labor shortage, man, it's causing, the biggest thing that I see with it is these major supply chain problems. Like I just saw this article. I just saw this thing about Harley Davidson. Like there's people who are completely having their supply chains broken. You can't get anything in, can't get anything out. I was actually going to ask you about that, because if anything, in my opinion, what this should have, and I kind of would wonder what your position is on it, but this country used to be, to a certain respect, our economy used to be more of a domestic economy where we had, where we could control our markets, control our economy, our unemployment, our lending and everything right here from this country. But now we're so globalized. It's such a global economy. I almost wonder if, when you see like this baby food shortage, when you see we couldn't get PPE during a major pandemic, a lot of very important things that we needed was so reliant outside of our borders. I almost wonder if this will make people in this country start rethinking, hey, should we? Now, I know that would drive cost up, because you're reducing your competition. Your domestic cost is higher. There's, more that goes into, staffing a U.S. company than maybe a company in Mexico or something. But I almost wonder if we should start thinking about, should we invest more in producing our own natural resources, gas and stuff like that, because being so reliant of all this stuff outside of our borders, it causes a lot of problems.
So you hit the nail on the head, and you kind of answer the question within your question. But so, obviously years ago, probably about 10, 15 years ago, everything was outsourced. Everything went to Mexico, everything went to Canada, a lot went to China, even more went to China nowadays. And we were basically more focused on, GNP versus GDP. We just wanted to make the money here, but we didn't care where we made it, just as long as we sold it for a profit. Sorry, Jay, my allergies are killing me. On the Northeast, those that are suffering from allergies, I hear you. The index is about 9.5 today. So with that being said, I got a little helper here today. Sorry, she's playing around, but it's a pre-record. We'll figure it out. So with that said, though, is about 10 years ago, everything was outsourced. Everything was at a point where you just had to get better margins on your goods, right? And we were a service economy, right? So now what happened was about 5 years ago, about 5 to 7 years ago, Trump had a very nationalist stance. There was incentives, a steel tax, and that kind of stuff. So that actually pushed a lot of manufacturing back to America. And it wasn't just Trump's policies or his national rhetoric. it was the devaluation of the dollar. The weaker the dollar got, it actually became, and it made more sense to manufacture in the U.S. than outside the U.S., right? So it was kind of like nothing in the U.S., and then there was kind of like a flavor for to do like a lot of different car companies that were outside of the U.S. It was cheaper for them to manufacture here than bring it over. But then slowly with the rise of China and the economy, the pendulum swung the other way, and there are some exposure points. You mentioned the PPE, a lot of our imports, steel imports, and the like. So we're very reliant on China, which I think is by design. So I think not even the federal government, the free market should recognize and say, let's build a lot more critical things stateside. Yes. And the messaging should be, hey, let's spend $7 more on something if it's American made, not just as a source of American pride, but a source now as saving the country. In the supply chain, which is kind of along with that. So yeah, I went to Starbucks one night. My wife was pregnant at the time. We said her beautiful son, but she was pregnant a few weeks back, and she had a Starbucks urge. I go there. Typical Starbucks open at 10, close at 7. So I went the next day or whatever it was, and they closed not because of C-19 or any breakout. They didn't have people to staff it.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about the labor shortage, and I want you to kind of weigh in because you have a better hand in corporate than I do. I'm more on the rough and tumble entrepreneur side, if you will, on the small business side. But so we can't find people, right, at the entry level, right? Because those people like, screw that. I'm not going to sit there. I almost lost my life, or I was shut down, and I have a new meaning in life, and I don't need to live here anymore. I can live wherever. I get a laptop and go. So the entry level jobs, forget it. They're gone. You can't find people to fill them if you want to. But what's interesting about this economy is a great resignation, where people like, screw this. If I have a laptop, I can work from wherever. I don't need to be somewhere. So it's not just the entry-level jobs, but it's the corporate jobs that pay pretty well that we can't fill. And that is a problem, right? So give us your opinion on it, and why do you think it's a problem? Because it is a big problem. Labor shortages are just as bad as high unemployment, believe it or not, because you can't fulfill marketing services, and that jams up the economy. But I want you to weigh in on that, RJ.
Yeah, and like you were saying about Starbucks, I see the same thing here. I go out to, there's times like I'll go out with my daughter and go out for a restaurant to get something to eat.
Yeah.
I walk in. This happened to me multiple times.
Yeah.
I walk in and they'll say it's a 40-minute wait.
Yeah.
And I look, now I know when I pulled in, the parking lot is half empty, and you go in and you see 4 tables, 5 tables, and the whole rest of the restaurant's open. Yep. And I'll say, how in the world can there be a 40-minute wait when, because they have no staff. They don't have no waitresses. Right. They have one bartender, one server, one cook, and they're trying to make something. But fixed cost, that's the hardest thing. Yes. When you have, your fixed cost doesn't go away. A lot of your fixed cost, and you got, and then your variable cost can be one thing, but when you can't control what you got to put out every single month, so you have to make a certain amount to be able to cover. So when you have this thing with, so when you have these like diminishing profits and stuff like that, you can't service the customers. I don't know about you, but anywhere I go, customer service has gotten very bad. Yep. So that puts even more pressure on businesses, because it's hard to retain their customer base. They're trying to do more with less. People are upset. So I mean, I see it like you said, especially with the entry level stuff. And I'm in more of an executive role, so I'm on like the management and the decision making side. Correct. But we're in a low skilled industry, so and a lot of manufacturing stuff is very entry level type of work, and I work for a manufacturer, but the people, when you got, there isn't enough people to even fill those positions anymore. And I mean, I'm like, put it this way, we interview around the clock. There's never a time we're not hiring, because you have a low quality person, sometimes you're not attracting the best talent. So it's reduced in everything else around you. Quality fallouts can be very, very high, because your rework cost is high, turnover is high, customers are upset, And at that same time, when you have these, you're putting out bad quality, you don't have the best staff, you're constantly having a high turnover rate, but now you got to go back to your customers and raise the price. It's just the whole thing. It just doesn't work.
But that's where I find a big like dichotomy, if you will. So you look at like corporate, right? So corporate has obviously large cost structure, and then they have their products that they sell. They can't just raise the prices very easily because there's a lot that goes into it, right? But yet they have to bear the cost. It cuts into earnings. If you're a public company, it's your stock price, which is people's portfolios. If you're a private company, it jams you up sometimes even more because you may have less ability to borrow, or you just got to take it on the chin, right? You might not have access to public cash. But for small business owners, also, I wrestle with it all the time. I have higher input expenses. I can't go back to my clients all of a sudden and say, hey, I'm going to raise our retainer 10% just because my costs are higher. I can't. I'm doing my best with what I have. I can't deliver 10% more because I'm delivering what I can deliver. And like, if I charge you more, well, they might jump ship, or they might, but then now their margins get challenged. So I think that squeeze, if you will, or that compression is what's jamming people up.
What do you think caused all? But like, I mean, do you think this is as real as? I mean, I struggle inside. Man, like when you look at these ports in New York City and stuff, and you see ships can't even unload, and you see some of this stuff. I mean, and I remember during the pandemic when Trump, this is the one thing Trump called right. He said it would be like a V-shaped economy where it was this major drop, and then sooner, and it would be a skyrocket back up.
You and I are predicting a W, and not for a win.
There you go.
Not for a win.
Exactly. So I don't know if it's just, but it just came so. Sometimes I wonder if some of this is market manipulation, because businesses can now, I mean, if you're in a distribution company, or you're selling a product or something, you can move less volume, make the same profits into a certain extent, because the prices of everything are so, I mean, at a time was so high, like I don't think that the gas, that the oil companies are making less because gas is, I mean, the margins, I mean, yeah, they can put out less but make the same profit.
That's what's happening. What happened was back last March, whatever, it was negative 37 a barrel. That's when I bought some Exxon, and now it's $101. I think it's going to go up to 200 a barrel. You heard it here first. You're looking at $8 a gallon gas, which is not that far off. We're looking at 6 in some countries. Just to kind of buttress your point real quick, is you would think you could actually do more with less, but here's the deal. You can't get your goods, and here's why. Because there's less guys at the port and the ILA that were half mobbed up, not pulling them off the trucks, right? Because there's
by the way, they're paying the guy and the ILA $500,000 a year.
I know some people that have a 4 in front of their salary and it's not 40,000. That's for our other side of our podcast. But nevertheless, those ships are packed. There's limited space. It's more expensive to ship them. But now we're getting to the other part of the supply chain issue. The truck drivers, which many retired, there's a lack of truck drivers, and there's actually a lack of trains to also buttress this along. That's where Warren Buffett got it right. He invested pretty heavily in I forget the train company, Santa Fe, whatever it was, in a train company, because he wanted to control the railroads. But nevertheless, train volume and trucking volume is sparse. So even if you can get it out of China, which their factories are closed, but if you can get them to open, if you can pay the freight, which is more expensive because of the oil, to get it here, you can't even get it to your distribution points because of that bottleneck. So that goes along with that, right? So now what do? You have truck drivers that you're paying, I don't know, $2 a mile, whatever you're paying. I don't know the numbers. Forgive me if any truck drivers listening to this or watching this, comment below so I know. But now they're incentivizing these drivers because there's nobody else to do it. So now, again, we'll maybe get it to where it needs to go, but it's going to cost a lot more. So again, further compression. Now you throw in, and also C-19, they believe was the C-19 fear is going to cause a long-term labor shortage. So now you got people that are maybe a little timid. Oh, we can argue if it's valid or not on another show, but people are timid about maybe going back to work because they're worried about catching the C-19, right? So that comes into play. Do you buy into that, or is there some validity to that, RJ?
Yeah, the one thing I think that COVID did is it taught people how, like, I'm a big believer that the mind is at its most powerful when it's backed into the corner.
True.
It's when the mind can really start being strategic and thinking. And COVID taught people how to do more with less. It taught people how to make money on the side to start. Gig workers.
Correct.
I read about that are booming right now. A lot of people figured out, and because of the pressure on, people became more where you might have been to get someone for $10 an hour, $12 an hour. Now people figured out alternative ways to make money on the computer, make money on DoorDash and Ubering and all these different ride share and all these different things. And or they started a business and they, they came together with a friend and figured out ways to do stuff. I think COVID made people more strategic. And now, I think, and on top of that, when so many people for the first time were able to work from home, that now companies are now competing. I know I go through it where you want to hire somebody or you want to but what they're asking in the interview is, do you have a VPN set up so I can work from home? Because people are now working from home and they want to. But now that might have been a little bit of a benefit to companies in a certain respect because they don't have all this brick and mortar cost and all this overhead of having everybody in the office and stuff. So they might have shaved some costs there. But getting people now on the small business is where that's who's going to suffer the most. The small business who can't meet those demands, who can't give that. They need you there.
Correct.
So it's a thing that's gonna, but I'm not like the kind of guy that's I'm an optimistic guy by and large. I don't typically
you're not doom and gloom like I am.
Well, I think things change, and I think what is scary is change, not so when what we typically think something really bad's happening, it's typically something really new could be happening, some kind of. And the truth about the US economy is that it's changing, where we're going to do more with artificial intelligence, more with robotics, more from where we don't have to all be in a call center or in a big cubicle setting to accomplish a goal. You can have people connecting around the country, but all being in their house. I mean, how much more have you used Zoom for business? I mean, I never even heard of Zoom until COVID. I can have meetings and stuff all over the country, and you don't have to catch a flight anymore. I was in business where, at least for a year, I was living practically in airports, traveling around all the time, flying around to meet people. I know that I think I read articles where airlines were losing a lot of money just from the corporate credit card sector because companies ain't paying to have you fly to Texas and to have a business meeting. Hop on your Zoom, get everybody together on Teams and stuff like that. So I kind of take the position that we're in a major changing world again. And typically, I think we figure it out. Now we're going to feel some economic heat. I tell it, don't.
Oh, we already are. It's coming.
Right now, start stacking sandbags. Stop spending. Don't take on any new major expenses. I think we're going to get I think there's going to be a bad crash on the way. Some bad economic times are on the way. But you know what? The only way, and I was reading about this, the only way to really fix these inflation problems is either one of two things. You got to raise rates. Or you need a recession.
That's it. That's the best part. People are like, don't they raise the rates when the economy does good? No, it's the opposite. When the economies are good, there's competition for goods and services, people willing to pay more, that inherently drives up rates. So it's like the inverse, right? So it's a low unemployment, right? So they're raising the rates.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you do. You
Exactly.
only lower it when there's a recession, right? Which we're gonna get eventually, because it's gonna happen. And they're raising them to keep up with inflation, which is the invisible tax, which we kind of said before. But so hold on, so you're 100% right. But now let's throw in a war. Okay? like it wasn't enough to like have doom and gloom. Now you throw in a war between one of the most powerful countries and what was considered kind of a sister country, or kind of a country that had a good relationship in the past. Now Russia turns on Ukraine. You know, they're not part of NATO. NATO's like sitting there, what do? We won't get involved too much on the political end, but on the economic end, this is a cluster F, because we rely, you said it earlier, we have a global economy. Now, I don't want to say if Russia sneezes, the world gets a cold. That's the US. That's China, right? But I think if Russia sneezes, could have a kind of a mini allergy, you know, a little discomfort. And I think that's
and also, you know, a lot of the oil and stuff going into Europe, and the European economy is really connected in with the US economy. I think it could have more of an economic impact than what we're aware of, but it's the uncertainty that it creates. And that's what affects the US economy, the global economy. It's not about Russia sneezed, it's that the investors are always looking for it's like the right time to pull and the right time to go in. And they're always walking that delicate line. So it's that you're dealing with a guy who we're very concerned about his mental stability. Like, is this the kind of guy who could there be World War III? Could there be nuclear weapons involved in this type of stuff? And that is a crashed economy. And you're dealing, and when you're dealing with an uncertain person, you create uncertainty in the market. So we never, I mean, if you woke up in the morning and it was like breaking news, Vladimir Putin shot off chemical weapons, or you're not going to really be that surprised. Correct. You're going to say, well, okay. So when you know that, well, now that makes you, okay, I got to be careful with how I'm spending and how I'm investing. So that's the uncertainty that gets created in the market by you're dealing with an uncertain person. And he's getting boxed in more and more and more. I often wonder, I think the worst thing that happened with Crimea is it made him think, oh, I can do this again. Because he didn't get no real big pushback with Crimea. Correct. I don't think he ever thought it was going to be like this.
Well, what you're describing is FUD. People are worried about FUD. Fear of the unknown. Fear, unknown, and doubt. Those are three things that spook investors, right? Yeah. And to kind of touch on Ukraine, right? So, okay, so let's just cut straight. I won't get too politically, but I'll speak militarily, right? Russia should be able to, and could be able to, beat Ukraine pretty easily. They're finding out they can't, okay? So Ukraine's goal is just to fight them off as long as they can, so they could give up. Like Russia could be like, oh, this is not worth it. Come up with a peace accord, or a white knight like NATO, US comes in and saves their ass, right? That's the Ukrainian strategy. The Russian strategy is just to win at any cost. You know this as well as most people watching. The harder it is for Russia to beat them, they will need to escalate. Yeah, they have their levels. Okay, we're in phase 1. Okay, we didn't take over Kyiv yet, but we took the east. Phase 2, phase 3, and it's going to get to a point where there could be chemical weapons. There could be some grimy stuff. RJ, I read this thing once. It's crazy. So there's this thing called like a second effort attempt, blah, blah, blah. So like if we, whatever reason, I was like, well, what if we just shot the nukes at Russia first? They'd be done. the way the nukes work are, we have a system that we can get to Russia first, right? But then they have a system that they would not find their kind of second level arsenal. And that second level arsenal would shoot back at us and destroy us, and vice versa. So if they blew us up, we don't just blow up, it goes off and blows up them. So it's literally mutually assured destruction, right?
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
They're probably not going to nuke Ukraine, but they are going to do some grimy things if they have to, because Putin cannot go this far, and he cannot lose. He cannot go this far and lose. He can't. I don't even think he'll settle for peace, because he's worried about losing face right now, right? But this all goes into the economy. They're cutting off. They won't cut off the SWIFTs because there's too much Russian money flowing, but they're cutting off the oligarchs. They're cutting off certain goods and services. They're cutting off general and traditional transactions, right? Again, not SWIFT, but others. So that's also coming into play, right? In the U.S., because we sell to Russia and we also buy from Russia and Eastern Europe, right? So now you cut that out of the mix with the labor shortage, with the inflation, with all the other nonsense. It's a recipe for disaster, my man. What do you think?
Well, you know, it has to be a goal in warfare. Like, why am I fighting for? What am I trying to accomplish? Now, oftentimes when a country is overtaken, the goal is kind of like what we did in the Middle East or in Afghanistan or Iraq, where we installed a government.
Correct.
So we knew the people. We can probably install a government and get the people and build an army, get an economy set up, and we with our enforcements we could keep the country from going off the. Ukraine's not going to ever submit and let a Russian government be installed. Correct. So what is the goal? Annihilate, to wipe the Ukrainians off the map, because they will fight like 300. That movie 300. Yeah. They won't go down. They are not going to surrender. Yeah. So the goal has to be and I don't think Putin's a smart man. I mean, a dumb man. So he has to be thinking, wow, I thought I would probably take over this country and get to Kyiv in a couple of weeks and put a government in. And hey, do you want to take over a country that you completely destroyed and you blew up all the infrastructure, all the ability, you completely destroyed the economy? Yep. So I don't know what the goal could be. At this point, the goal, all I can think of would be try to appear as though you gained something, maybe an agreement they can never join NATO. I don't know. Maybe something where you say we're going to take certain territories and claim them as Russian territories. The rest can be Ukraine, with an agreement that it's never going to be.
That'd be the right move. Gain some territory. They just want the strategic routes for their pipelines. That's all they give a shit about, right? Mm-hmm. So if they were a little more transparent and sit down with Zelensky and say, listen, here's what we really want, right? Without having the bloodshed, without having all the stuff happen. But you got egos in the way, and unfortunately, guys with the egos are the ones running the show,
I want to say it was Napoleon. I think it was Napoleon that famously said, the moral is to the physical as 3-1. Meaning, when you're fighting, like for you, Tom, if you're just walking down the street and there's some knucklehead that doesn't mean anything, he makes a comment, but you're 3 times stronger fighting for your wife and kids,
correct,
than you are fighting for nothing. Yeah. So if someone came in your house right now and trying to harm your wife and your children, you're going to have an ability and a power that you don't have if it wasn't your wife and kids. If I'm in your house, it's me and you. Someone came in to attack me, you'll try to help me. Yeah. And you might think you're giving your all to help me. Correct. But your all is 3 times more when it's your wife and when it's your wife and your children. So the problem that Russia is having, there's no moral that the Russian army is fighting for. Yep. They're just fighting because they're being ordered to. So when you see them fleeing into the woods and you see them, But the Russians are fighting with, I mean, the Ukrainians are fighting with far less weaponry, far less men, and they're fighting without high superiority air power and things like that. But they're holding their own, and they're willing to die. And you can't kill a man that's willing to die. The Russians don't want to die.
Correct.
The Russians don't want to die. They're willing to die. My favorite thing, I mean, I ordered a Ukrainian flag the next day, but when I think Biden or or Washington or someone was letting Putin know, I want to say it was the White House, was letting Zelensky know, hey, we can get you out, and you can, and maybe get you into Poland or something.
Yeah, oh no, they had an exit plan. He was like, kick rocks.
He said, I don't need a ride. I need weapons. You have a man like that, you know, it's hard to beat that kind of country who's willing to die. And there's no victory here for Putin to be had. And I think we're going to be seeing Hitler's bunker part 2 here. He's boxing himself into a corner. You're seeing his top generals being killed. You're seeing his top supporters fleeing. He's the whole world's turning against them. The only person on the fence is kind of China.
Yeah.
And he's off the world stage forever. He's never going to come back from this. He's in a bad situation.
Good point. Now I always ask this question on interviews. I want to see how you would answer. And it's a deciding factor whether I hire somebody or not. And excuse me, got a little spill. Sorry about that. So my question to you is, would you rather win or not lose, and why? Would you rather win or not lose? And I want you to think about it in the Ukrainian sense.
For me, I always want to win.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not afraid to lose, but
no, not afraid to lose. I might hear it. This is why it's critical.
Okay.
Would you rather win or not lose?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Meaning, is the fear of losing greater than your desire to win?
Okay. Being Ukraine?
Correct.
Oh, I'd rather not lose.
That's my point. So Russia, what do they get? A little bit in their coffers.
Yeah.
What does Ukraine get if they lose? They lose their family, they lose their house, they lose their women, they lose their children, they lose their way of life. So for me, I'd rather not lose. I don't care about winning. I can't lose. So I always ask that. And the fear of losing always has to be greater than the desire to win. All right.
If I can ask you, how do you think this? I mean, let's just make a prediction so we're on record for it. How do you think this thing? How do you think this thing ends?
It ends in another month at a treaty of Paris or some other smelly European country. Just kidding. I'm going to shit for that. Another European country has some treaty. They work out a deal. It's going to be heavily in favor of Russia, and somehow the Americans going to come out as like, we help broker, or we help support, and try to get behind it. But there's going to be a treaty, and Zelensky's going to have to concede, and it's going to be in about a month or so, and it's going to be a fair deal for Zelensky, but not a good deal for the Ukrainians. That's my prediction. What say you, RJ?
The funny thing to me is this big debate that Ukrainians fighting this war themselves and the U.S. shouldn't get involved. The U.S. is involved. We are helping to fight this war. It's bullshit that I honestly believe that we're actually doing covert attacks. I think that we're probably helping to launch certain. It wouldn't surprise me if we're doing covert things from Poland or something. Or I mean, using all of our intelligence. As you know, warfare is way easier to fight with intelligence and robotics and sophistication than it is with doing a trigger and having men on the ground. You can do more damage with technology, with tech warfare than you can hand-to-hand combat.
Absolutely.
We're in this war. We're fighting Russia.
Yep.
Off the record. But I don't think that Zelensky would accept a deal where he gives up any territory. I think he's willing. I think there's so much blood that's been spilled of his people, of the Ukrainian people. I don't think he will concede any territory.
Interesting. Okay.
And I think, I'm going to take a harsh position here. I don't think it ends in a treaty, because I think Putin is a really sick man. I think it ends more. Putin is getting boxed into a corner that's smaller and smaller and smaller, because his top. I just saw there was an assassination attempt against him a couple months ago. I just heard about that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be losing more and more of his top people. I think what happens is there could be some kind of major uprising in Russia that ends the war.
Ooh, that's a big one. Well, now that we're getting into predictions, let's migrate over to the stock market. Let's make some money, RJ. All right, worst start to the year since 1939, as per Business Insider. We talked about earlier the aforementioned inflation, rate hikes, the war, etc., are keeping the markets volatile. There are people looking at what to do now, right? The correction is here. What will happen next and where to invest? So what's going to happen next with the market, and where should people put their chips, RJ? We don't get too specific, because if a stock goes down, shit, we'll never hear the end of it. But give us kind of the macro level of what happens next and where should people put their chips. I'm going to surprise you on my bet, but go.
Okay. If you're a day trader of some sort, yeah, you might have to make some different type of decisions if you're in for, depending on what you're in for. But the average person who their stock market holdings are largely 401ks and stuff like that, I always tell people two things that always come back that you never lose: real estate and the stock market has always came back.
Correct.
Always. If you go back to if you look at the whole history of it, it's just a line that goes up. So you have dips, but it goes up. So I think for the average, for most people, if you're in the stock market, I wouldn't say this about the crypto market, but I would say
we're going to talk about crypto a little bit,
because I wouldn't say it about the crypto market, but I would say if you're in the stock market, just buckle up and just go for the ride. And what goes up comes down, and what goes down goes up. It's just it's part of the what creates this problem is people are so damn scared. All they want to do is win, but they don't want to go.
Fear, unknown, and doubt.
And that fear, unknown, and doubt causes people all their damn problems. They make irrational decisions.
Correct.
I always tell people this: when you're, logic and high emotion are never present in the human at the exact same time. Correct. So whenever your emotions are very low and controlled, your logic is very high.
It's like a seesaw.
Exactly. So you think very logically, very strategically when you're in an emotionally balanced place. But when you're in a very high emotional place of worry and anxiety, your logic is very, very low at that point. So, it's like EQ versus IQ.
Correct.
I always try to tell people that when you're very emotional, just don't do nothing. Just don't do anything. Just go stand in the corner and do nothing. Have a freaking just pour yourself another one of these, right?
Right. That's right. Ooh, we're getting good. We're getting a little deeper. We're getting a little more sauce. We're gonna give some good. But hold on. So we both agree. And like I said, I have to share this. On 2 months ago, it was like March 8th-ish. I predicted a crash. So I'm more than halfway there. So kind of was right. I didn't short the market, but what I did do is wait and see. Okay. So I do predict an additional 20 or 30%
20 to 30
additional,
drop.
I think the Dow is going to go down to 25,000, and I think we're no. This is this is the buckle up.
I could say now it hit almost what 22 or something during the height of the pandemic.
Yeah, for like a minute, then it shot back up, and then it went as high as like 34-ish and 35-ish, and I think it's now
Tom, it hit during the 2008 crisis. I think it hit what 7,000 or 8,000, and then 8 years later, it had more than doubled, and then And we were saying, oh my God, when Obama left office, you're talking about what 18,000, 17,000 or something. We thought, how much higher can it possibly go? It cannot go any higher. And it doubled again after that.
But I'm gonna trick you on where to lay your bets. Here's why. Hold on Exxon, because I bought it at like 30, now it's at 94. So hold on that. Okay. So hold on to oil. Too high interest point. Okay, now. I like tech. I think tech is overcorrected. I think tech is the red herring. Let's blame everything on Meta and Amazon. Today, Snapchat is down 40% because advertisers pulling out their money. Again, another reason for the recession coming. Forgot about that. We'll get to that in a minute. Where marketing dollars go, the recession follows, right? So I like tech in terms of investment in the medium term, 2 to 4 years, but the market's going down another 20-30%.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think tech can be tricky because you never know what the right tech is. Like it's so
that's why I got out of, and I'm not going to claim to be a great investor because I had Facebook at 20. I had Apple at 150 before the 2-7 splits or the 2-6 splits. So I'm more of a drip investor long term, but I do try to buy at dips. So now to buy at dips, again, I just like tech as a broader group. I'll never give or rarely give individual opinions. One, I will never hear the end of it. You know how the mob genre works. That's mostly our viewers. God forbid we get something wrong, but I just like the tech space. I like it. If you get into an ETF or maybe some type of mutual fund with a low expense ratio, a little longer term, you pick up Amazon cheap. Spending $2,000 on Amazon, pick up a share, hold it, stay with it, get into a class of stocks like an ETF, and I just really like tech right now. I'm really high in tech.
Yeah,
You surprised by that? Because I figured you'd be surprised.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, no, I see a lot of them are down, like but if you're in stuff like Apple or even Twitter, which we'll talk about, and all that stuff, those are safe tech holdings, and in my opinion, I think retail could be low. I mean, I see what's happening with
I would touch retail with a 10-foot pole, brother.
Walmart and Target.
They're getting crushed. You know why? Overstaffing, which we're going to get to. If you saw the outline, we're going to get to that. But you could say retail. I'll disagree with you. What sector do you like?
I'm not saying retail. I was
going to say that doors might be going to the head a little bit.
I'm saying that's all that stuff's going to be, in my opinion. And look, the world's changing to less brick and mortar and more efficient ways to get things. People, the closer you can get to allowing the human to sit on their ass,
they will,
but be serviced. That's where the money's going to be for the future. So if you're investing in something that makes people have to move their legs to use it, you're probably going backwards. So
categorically correct.
Yeah, so you're probably investing in something that's dying. Now I know like Walmart's doing what $600 billion or something, and revenue and stuff, and Target's doing well and stuff. But I think this pandemic changed a lot of stuff. I mean, I've never in my life used had groceries delivered from the store. I never pulled into a brick and mortar and popped my trunk and had someone put my groceries in the trunk. There's a new, I think COVID made people a lot more lazy, man, where You want it fast, you want it easy, you want it started with the microwave, and now we got Keurig, where I hate making a pot of coffee now.
Yep.
Like you want everything fast now.
Yeah.
So if you're investing in efficiency, you're investing in the right direction. Most
so come on, RJ, before we go on to housing, because I'm gonna hold you to it. What sector? I won't commit to a stock, but what sector do you like? Let's nail it down. Where should people, somebody's watching and somebody actually listens to us 50 minutes in and says, oh shit, you know what? I agree with RJ. Here's a sector I should place some bets. What sector do you like? I'm big on tech right now.
I still believe that people should put their money in real estate. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I always believe that. But you know what, Tom? And this is a cheesy saying, but it's commonly said. So I'm not the pioneer of this grand thought. The world's only so big. It's only so much land.
So much land, as per Mark Twain.
Yeah, there's only so much land, and if you own some of it or whatever you own, they ain't producing any more of it. And populations are growing. The world's constantly getting more and more people.
Good point.
At a time where we have less and less, well, we only have a certain amount of land. And maybe if you believe in climate change and stuff like that, places that you can live that will be able to inhabit, they're suggesting or being reduced, where rising sea levels and things like that will make it where certain places that we were once able to live, we can't live anymore.
Yeah,
so
further increasing the land value.
Yeah, so I think putting money into, I think that's always that's where I will always tell people to stick their money.
All right, so now it's good to say. I guess you saw the outline. Let's talk about buying a house in real estate. Home prices are still rising. Mortgage rates have increased 2% since January, which is crazy. Inflation, the war, etc., have exacerbated the housing supply crisis. The hidden gems, typically were Dallas, Tucson, Arizona, etc., are no longer affordable. 4 to 5% increase. 4 to 5%. 4.2 now is 5% average mortgage. A 1% increase. That 1% takes it completely out of your pocket on a compounding basis every year if you have a higher mortgage. And the commercial and residential investments should decrease because also rents are very high. So talking to us about the housing market. I agree with you that you should still go into real estate and then accept the lower cap rate, right? You're not going to find, at least in New Jersey, you're not in the 8-9% cap rate. You'll find 5%, you'll find 4%, and then weather the storm and then make a little bit on appreciation, a little bit on the rent, a little bit of tax savings. So I'll give you that, but I want you to weigh in on the housing sector overall, RJ.
If you're in the side of paying rent, you're in a bad position right now in this country. I mean, I think the national average is up over 20%. Is that what it is, Tom? Somewhere it's like 23% or something. It's very, and that's 12 months, right?
Yeah, and also housing prices as well went up to average 400,000, up 20%.
Well,
the thing is, real quick, RJ, and landlords borrow money, not the old days where people pay cash. So when they have the financial constraints, they have to pass it on to their renters.
Yeah. So there's parts of Florida. I think Miami has like 40% rent increases or something. There's parts of Florida where you have 40% increases. Yeah. But so there's certain places around the country where you have major cost increases on rent. But the national average, I'm almost certain, is over 20%. So if you're on the side where you're paying rent, I mean, you're talking, and a lot of those places you're paying 20%, 25, 30% rent increases on. The guy who you're paying that rent to got a real great deal on his mortgage. I mean, he might have had a 3.25% or something. You know, I bought my house during the 2008-10.
Oh man!
So I got a good. I bought at a low point back then.
God bless.
And I had a 4% fixed on my house.
Ooh,
back then, it's funny because I'll never forget my real estate my agent told me he said, because he's a much older than me, but he was selling homes during the Carter administration.
Wow.
When you had 15-16% interest rates on homes. I'll never forget, he told me, he said, if God descended from heaven and stood in front of him and said, hey, one day there's going to be 4% interest rates, he said he would have slapped them and called him a liar. Now, so I had a 4% up until the pandemic hit. I refied during the whole
and COVID. It went lower than 4.
I got 2.75 fixed interest rate right now.
Christ.
So my point on this is, people who are in the people I think about are the ones that were buying these homes after the pandemic was easing, and they're buying homes 15% over market value,
and not carrying that interest rate on top of it.
Paying that. So because the housing market seems to be cooling, I know for like past 4 months or so, you're seeing a change in people buying houses. I think new home sales, newly built homes, has been down over 10%.
Yep, I think that has 16% first time ever, and it's due to just people canceling, lower inventory, not a higher material costs, and not having the labor.
So you got 4 straight months of where it's less and less people buying homes. New homes. But then again, like you said, material cost is extremely high. Labor is very short. It costs a lot more money to even have a house built. And now you're at it. So all these people who bought inflated properties, they're probably, a lot of people are going to end up underwater.
That's the next. That's going to be the second shoe to drop, because I first predict the market. And then once the market goes, the negative wealth effect happens. That 401k they had 100k in, is now worth 30, even though you weren't going to touch it in 20 years. Now you feel poorer, right? And now that you feel poor, you act poor, and you act poor, you spend less. You spend less as an economy. That's when it recedes, and that's why I think. And we brought a good point on that, because with the housing market goes, the overall economy, and you're right. I think that can happen. Is that a prediction of yours, or is that just more of a thought?
Well, now, again, I'm always an optimist. I think if you have real estate, if you own property, in the long run, you're going to be okay.
I always said, I was watching, if you follow Grant Cardone, he's one of those like real estate guys, a sales guru. He goes, I could buy a property today. He goes, just the depreciation alone, I get the interest rates, blah, 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 tax incentives and so forth. And in 30 years from now, when I'm long and gone, my kids will own it. It'll be worth $1 million or whatever it is. And they make $3,000-4,000 a month from it. And that's kind of right about real estate.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's a twofold thing. It depends on what side you're on. If you bought a house as your primary residency, you're probably safe. Correct. Because you might be underwater technically, but you're living in it. So the value that you're receiving is you have shelter, you have a home.
Because the replacement cost is higher if you move. Correct.
Yeah, exactly. And so even if you bought it high, you're still paying a lot less by paying a mortgage than you are on paying rent. So if you're living if you acquired a home during this pandemic and you're underwater a little, it's like perception value, kind of, But if you're an investor and you bought an investment property, where you're protected, you're shielded a bit, is that rents are out of control. So even if your home is underwater a little bit, you're covering your nut every month because you have this high in demand. you know, and so, but so I guess I would say, I think we're going to see a major cooling of the housing market.
Okay.
I think that I think rates will drive people. I tell you this, and this sounds crazy to say it, 5%, 5.5% sounds, and you know what? The biggest trick ever played on people is compounding interest rates.
That's
People
right.
don't really understand what that means.
Yep.
So they say, I've talked to people who say, well, it only changed by 2%. Do you know what 2% shift is when it's compounding daily?
Yep.
So, like, if you bought a $100,000 home at 3%, that would be what, $300 a month? It'd be your mortgage payment.
Yeah.
2% more, you're paying $500. So you're nearly doubled. So
they don't realize when they pay that mortgage payment of $3,000-4,000 a month, and only $300 goes towards the principal. That other money just.
But see, a lot of people don't understand how 1%, 2% shift is substantial. It's 100%, substantial.
100%.
5%. 5.5, 6% to me sounds like, wow, I'm paying $275. We're talking about more than doubling what, you know. So, but
you're gonna laugh at this, but there's a reason for it. So I have 2 LLCs. I'm not a W-2 anywhere. So I have 2 companies. So obviously I'm going to maximize my make sure I say this correctly.
Are you renting your house back to
No,
your
I have my house and I only put down 10% down, and I actually have a high interest rate right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I put, now we're like at about half paid off because, you know, a lot happened that we're upside. So I put it towards the house because we had a high interest rate. Typically you don't invest in the house, but when you're paying 5.75, you do. But we had a situation where I had to buy a house, had a great opportunity right before COVID, talking like February 14th, 2020, right? And had a great opportunity where I bought a house, but on the tax end, let's just say I minimize my exposure. Is that the right way to say it?
Because of your business out of your house.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay. So
it's all legal. It's legal.
100%. But as a result, it's hard to go to the bank and get
a loan,
$100,000 loan when you make 20 grand a year. You know what I'm saying?
You know, it's that delicate balance. I always tell people. Some new business owners oftentimes are so much want to avoid paying taxes.
Correct.
That they hinder themselves because they can't acquire lending and they don't show a profit. It's hard to sell a business that has no profit. It's hard to, you know, it's just, I always tell everybody, claim even the gain is creating more of a loss for you. So, but you can, if you're, again, everyone has to know what their goals are. If you have a long-term goal for your business, then maybe it's advantageous to not show a profit for, you know, you can, there's so many ways. Yeah.
Well, so so what happened was the house, I essentially got a good deal on it and got like $140,000 off the original ask, and has since grew in value another $300,000, which is insane. Mm-hmm. So now I went from having only 10% equity to paying some off and it growing, and now I'm like 60% equity in less than 2 years. Now I'm not going to do this, but I could, and I have in the past. My first business, I actually took a HELOC and put it all into my first business. That if I lost that business, I would have lost my house. But that's what you do as an entrepreneur. And now that business is now 16 years old and gives me a lot of mailbox money every month. So it worked out. And you got to take those risks. But that's why I kind of absorbed a similar risk buying this house. So now I see where you land on the houses. You're a little bit more bullish than I am, and I appreciate that. We're talking a little bit about what companies are doing at the macro level. Talk to someone about Meta, Netflix, Wayfair, having hiring freezes and so forth. Talk to us a little bit about how you think they're handling their economy and workforce.
Who? Which companies?
Sorry, I got the little one yelling over here. Hey, love. Meta has announced a freeze. Netflix is laying off. Wayfair, which has been torrid these last few years, is now a hiring freeze. not a reduction. Walmart and Amazon said they are overstaffed, which may result in a reduction in staff. So now we have some big tech companies that were hiring hundreds of thousands of people are either freezing or about to reduce their staff. What are your thoughts? And is it going to have an effect on the overall economy?
I think everybody is stacking sandbags. And you know what I always say about investors, businessmen, guys like yourself? Entrepreneurs are always two large steps ahead of politicians. They're always behind, like they'll always think what the politician is thinking now. The investor, the businessman, is knew 2 years ago he was going to think this, and he was already preparing for what was getting ready to come. So these business guys, what Wayfair and all these guys are doing, they know something's on the way, and inflation problems, labor shortage problems, you have a very high labor cost right now. Supply chain problems are unbelievable. There's not a lot of measurable business metrics to look at right now and feel that optimistic about your next. And we know how it is in business, Tom. And I go through it myself. I have a staff meeting every week. What did we do for the week? What were the numbers? And then what was the monthly and what was the quarterly? And at the end of the year, did we meet did we grow 10% or whatever? So as you know, your performance, especially when you're acquiring lending and things like that, banks, where you have to turn in your financials on a month-to-month basis. If a bank is giving you a line of credit for $5 million or $10 million bucks, and you're drawing off that credit, they want to see those books every month, and so they have to prepare. It's not like just because you're a business, you have to worry week to week, just like a regular everyday person has to worry. Larger numbers possibly, but you're wearing in week to week. So Amazon and all these people, I think what they're doing is they are preparing for what's to come.
Correct. They're leading indicators. That's kind of why I wanted to bring them up. Uber is also slowing down their hiring and cutting back on marketing, which is a big red flag. But the fact that Uber is kind of slowing down on marketing shows less rides. That's infrastructure. That also a leading indicator, or you're not really paying attention to Uber?
Big or small, I think activities are the same. Just like in your own personal household, if you're thinking about my jobs, and they haven't given out raises this year, they're cutting all the overtime. Hey, babe, let's go to the beach this year rather than going to Paris. Hey, let's carpool on the way to work. If you're thinking like that, your business that has 3 people that you work for, and you're one of the 3, he's thinking like that. And the big box store that has 100 employees is thinking like that. And the big corporation that got 7,000 employees is thinking like that. It's just the size of the metric is bigger or smaller, but the decision is the same. The percentage is the same. A guy in his household might have to make a shift by 2%. It might be, hey, babe, cut the Netflix subscription, cut the Disney Plus, and I'll mow the lawn myself. Let's cut the lawn guy. You might have shaved 5%, 10% out of your household expense. So you shaved 10, and every business all the way up to the Walmart is shaving 10.
And that's enough. And that's enough to put a ripple in the economy.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that. And those are the kind of things that make a difference. All right, predictions. Let's start off. Elon Musk, does he complete his Twitter deal? And does that have any effect on free speech?
Wow. I don't think he really wants it. I don't think he really wants to spend that kind of money on. First of all, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? Because, and I looked into it a little bit. I think Elon Musk is already the majority shareholder of Twitter. Is that correct?
I think he bought under the required kind of 10% without reporting, and then he
owns like 9.2.
And after that, you got a proxy and put in a bid.
But no one else. He's the largest shareholder. I think even Jack Dorsey only owns 2%.
Correct. He's the largest single and/or I believe institutional shareholder. Correct.
Exactly. And Twitter makes most of its money on ads. Like over 90% of all the money Twitter makes is on ads. And I know Musk wants to reduce ads revenue by like half, and he wants to, but also increase revenue. Strange how you cut your revenue source, but somehow you make it's a whole thing strange.
Correct.
No, I don't know that this one goes through at the number. He offered what, 50 something, 55, 54?
I think it was 44 billion. Let me see. Hold on.
44 billion, but the share price was like 55 a share.
I think 55, 57, yeah.
Yeah. And then it crashed by like 25%, I think, the share.
Correct. Some believe he might have manipulated it.
Honestly, I'll tell you this. I would think
44 billion.
44 billion. It would be the largest tech sale, I think, in history, right? Ever. It would be the largest sale ever. I don't know why he would want that headache. Why he would. I sometimes think, I don't know. If I had to lean towards it the way it looks, I don't think he really wants to buy it. I might be wrong. What do you think? You think he wants to buy this company?
I think he wants to buy. One thing he makes going to go private. He looks at, like, right now there's a political divide. You have half of the U.S. thinking one way, half of the other. If he, quote unquote, can, like, have the perception of free speech, he might alienate 10 to 50% of people on the left, but bring over 70% of people from the right. More users mean more value. He can integrate with these other businesses like Tesla and so forth. SpaceX as free promotion. Probably spends a whole bunch of money on PR marketing anyway. Now he can kind of do this in house. It's a right move, and I think he's going to do it.
He's one of Elon Musk is a guy I always looked up to. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a grand thinker. I always like people like him that think big like that. And I would say it would not surprise me one bit if it goes through, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if it doesn't. I don't think he has the best relationship with the regulators.
Yeah, the SEC hates him.
They hate his guts. The SEC does not care for him much. And in many ways, though, as a business guy, do you think, the way he did this, it's kind of market manipulation.
Oh, it's 100% market manipulation. But at his end, right? Like, all right, you and I, all right, we're gonna go to Little Italy. We're gonna go to a Cortillo, gonna have a nice dinner. We'll go to either Cafe Roma and Far for dessert. Maybe have Cigar or Man over at Mulberry, and then we find a old school crap, or card room, right? Yeah, you and I have a few drinks. We put down $50 a hand. Not enough to break the bank, but a little high that your wife might break your chops, right? But you know what? You had a good week. You go to the ATM. You start gambling $500, $600, $700 a hand. Now all of a sudden, it gets exciting, right? Good, bad, or ugly, right?
Yeah.
He needs this. The guy owns a space travel company. He owns the electrical car market. If he can manipulate and own the media and the vessel for free speech, that's his $700 a hand. You get what I'm saying? And that's why he's going to do it.
Look, the guy likes to play it close to the edge. He almost went bankrupt with Tesla. He almost went bankrupt with SpaceX. Yep. I admire him a lot. He thinks how I'm Tim, Tom, I'm the kind of guy that I go for broke in life. I'll spend the last dollar on a project I believe in. Tom,
Yep.
if I told you how much money that I have out right now, and
you shared a little bit. Listen, you gotta subscribe. Black Hand Print Mafia. I gotta be honest with you. The whole Armchair MBA thing is supposed to be to evaluate, organized crime, the business of organized crime, and some business, right? I do it like, okay. To him, it's an art and a science. The kid crushes it. That's why I had him on today, because I wanted to hear his opinion about business and the economy. The mob stuff, we already did one show together. I reviewed his book. I'll put the links in the bio because I want you to check this out if you haven't. Sub to his channel. But I value your opinion. But I agree with you. The money that we put out and the stuff that we believe in, it's almost embarrassing.
Tom, you know what's funny? And that's the reason why, I don't believe in doing ego content. Like, I would never, I never talk about views or subscribers.
No, never.
I would never do that because I try to always make it about the viewer. Never make it about.
But the only thing you're ever wrong on, which I laugh, is the videos that you would have swore do well don't. And the ones that you just slap together do 30,000 views. And it's funny because I agree. I can't get over this guy did the best video ever on Costello, and it's not his #1 video. I'm gonna just put a link to that just to be spiteful. My point is, I agree with you. The shit that you think are gonna kill it versus I just slapped this together, it's very unpredictable.
Tom, I did a video a couple weeks ago on Donald Trump, and I thought I was gonna hang it up, just retire. Like, I'm the greatest. I swear. I was already picking out a new suit. I
didn't watch it, but did you talk about Roy Cohn at all or no?
Yeah, Roy Cohn, everybody. I spent weeks working on this. Tom, I had a new house. Man, this is a nice house. I'm gonna remodel the house. I had it all planned how I'm gonna spend the check.
Oh my God.
Tom, it got nobody watched it. Nobody watched it. And then I just hit maybe 105,000 views on my current State of the Mob video.
Yeah,
took me 20 minutes. Didn't have to
little Wikipedia, call the wise guy you knew, checked out another content creator, you went live, and next thing you knew, it's boom.
You know what's funny? I was busy that week. I was in Manhattan. I was filming I was doing some film work in Manhattan. I was super busy. I didn't have time. That was the only time. And I'm a serious, focused guy when it comes to this. I don't just be. So that was the only time I'm I got to just do something that I can't spend all week researching.
Yeah.
I'm just so I just sat down and made that video. Now I did a day or two of research, but not like I usually do.
Correct.
My biggest video I ever did. The ones I put the most in. But so my point that I'm trying to make is that viewers are real quick to get into your comments.
Yeah.
Fuck you, you're F you, you're this, you're that. Yeah. And sometimes you get people who are really nasty.
100%.
But people don't know the back end of being a creator, how much creators go through. Even a small creator. I'm a small creator.
I want to shoot straight. At your level, this is a loss leader for you. Not even, let's just say, sake of argument, you keep the production value as it is, right? Kind of camera, do this like this. Your time, you're an executive, so you have your executive time, you have your family time, then you have whatever's left over, right? And you probably cut in sometimes the other stuff and have a hard expense when you did that beautiful one in Manhattan. I saw that. I thought that was balls. I'm like, you know what? This kid's not going to make nothing on this video, but he just made it, and that's what I love. Like people that there's two guys that go to the gym, right? The guy that goes to impress the girls, and the guy that impresses the girls and the guys. You know what I'm saying? And that video impressed both.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's oh shit. Tell us about that. Plug that a little bit.
I got stuff that I didn't even put out that I did. Where I hire film crew, editors. Tom, since I started on YouTube, and then and then the prep for it, or the put it this way, I got tens of thousands of my own money hedged already. That's out on because I'm traveling, I'm talking to people, I'm doing things. I just flew out to meet. It's no secret because I have a picture published, but I just flew out to meet Michael DiLeonardo. I'm paying airfares, room and board, hotels, travel expenses.
Time away from the family.
Time, it's so a lot go. There's so much but see, it ain't even about YouTube. It's something so much different I'm trying to do.
That's what people say, but that's what people say about me. Like I make like my check, it was the 22nd just passed. The $400 came in or whatever, 800, whatever it was. I spent more on books. Like I'm getting these books here. I'm going to try to point to. I'm giving these books away next week. It cost me $200, and the mail them with the mail. It's going to be, and they're signed. Like that's what I don't get. Like what? Like so. Dave Meltzer, who, if you ever do interviews, I'll get him on for you. Dave Meltzer was the CEO of that firm with Jerry Maguire. Lee Steinberg, he was a head of Lee Steinberg's agency. So he made $100 million. He lost $100 million, and then he got it back. And he's business partners with Warren Moon in his current company. So he just is a rebound guy. So he created a book called Connected to Goodness. So I had him sign 10 books, and I'm giving them out. And so you got to pay for them, you got to mail them, and then you get in a comment. Some guy's like, "Tom, your wife hates you." Like, what the hell does that have to do? I don't know how that works. Like, I'm like creating for. It's like imagine like you're walking down the street, right? And you like give something, And remember, they come to your channel, so you know them and you give them something
for free.
And then they like cock and piss on you, and you're like, and you're supposed to like wash your face with it and nourish. Like, I never understood.
Tom, I'll tell you what I learned. Like I never did content, media, nothing. I was a writer, and I was investing in books and meeting people and trying to get my books off the ground and stuff. And my life is funded by my, as a professional.
That was me for a while when I had more corporate opportunity. I did my side hustle, and it was like incongruent in a good way. Like I was making great money, so it didn't matter, As an entrepreneur, I still do pretty well, but the money's made differently. So that's why I'm so like I'm working on getting a studio. I'm working on stepping it up too, but it's hard.
But see, I hope I won't do it, but I hope one day somebody does something on like content creators, like guys like us. It's easy to then do like a profile on like Francis Coppola, big producer. But I wish somebody would do something where they go at like people like us that got 10,000 subs or something, and that we work all year to get 1 million views all year. I wish somebody did.
How about creating a show, getting to 1 million views, and then having it ripped down the next day?
And I exactly. So I wish somebody took the time to look at what we go through to even get like, to get 1,000 subscribers is not easy. It is not easy.
Correct.
Somebody that can get a monetized channel, and I'm not talking about one of these. This is in demand right now. Just buying it. I mean, someone who worked to truly get 1,000 subscribers.
Correct.
Well, I got so much respect for a guy that got 1,000 subscribers, and when I see him or talk to him, I want to hug him, and because I know what he went through. I know this thing is not easy.
Yep. And what's weird is if you have 1,000 subs, you get 1,000 views easily, right? When you have 10,000 subs, they only introduce it to 15% of your audience. So you get like 1,500 subs, 1,500 views. Yeah. Then you're like, wait a second, I have 10,000 subs. Why don't I have 10,000 views? No, you either got to boost it or it has to do really well.
You have to really you got to have your ear to, you really got to have your ear to the audience. It's not easy like people think. It's not. Right. It's mentally draining. It's emotionally draining. Takes a toll on you. So I wonder about people that got 100,000, 500,000 subs, because I know what the emotional and mental dealings are with 5,000, 6,000. Like I know.
I have a friend of mine. He's young. He's like 18. He's kind of like going to be a client. I met him. He's on YouTube. He has 500,000 subs. He makes like 20K a month, but he does kid stuff like the Bigfoot in the forest at 2 a.m. bullshit stuff. But he makes the bag. He's 18 years old. He's in Canada. Makes 20K USD. But he's a true creator. He gets like depressed. He goes through cycles. You know, and to be a true creator, you need to be somewhat of an artist too.
Tom, I don't talk about this, but I'll share it because we're talking about it.
Yeah, please.
Tom,
don't worry, nobody's watching.
I have had sleepless nights over this shit.
Get the hell out. You're supposed to be Mr. Put Together. I mean, you are, but you get what I'm saying. You know?
Because like I don't do anything just for my I put everything into what I do all the time.
Yeah.
And like I had a commenter ask me, she said, "Well, you make really great videos. How do you make income?" And I responded back to her comment. I said, "I make outcome. I don't make yeah, I said I make outcome. The money goes out. I lose. I have never made a penny on nothing anything you see on YouTube. If I made money, I put it back in and then put more money. Tom, I got
but you know what though? You're building a brand, and there will be a day that you'll go on stage and your fee for that one talk is going to usurp what you put out for the last 3 years. It will happen. But you have the temperament to do that, the training to do that. A lot of people don't. Like my wife has been pretty good about it, where essentially the NBA Buttman was profitable. NBA and Buttman has Armchair MBA hasn't. So I'm underwater. But I'm it's a long game for me. I want to build a community. I want to build. I see that's the thing. People look at their audience like customers. You know, hey, give me a give me a super chat, or give me a cash app, or give me somebody who wants to donate. And the merch store is open. They're welcome to buy something, cop some merch. God bless, right? And that helps the brand out. It helps the show. But I don't look at people like customers. I look at like them from community. And actually, I got this from this book, Crushing It by Gary V. Signed copy. I should give that away too. Another giveaway. Jab, 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 right hook. Give, and then ask. So by the time you ask, you build up goodwill. You know.
You know what, Tom? No, that's what makes you special. I tell people, fearlessness is a real special emotion. It's a real special character trait to say, I'll put up, because I can tell you in the last
20-30 grand easily.
I'm telling you, just in the last couple years, I got 20,000-30,000 out on projects that I haven't even showed people yet. Got, you know, but see, when the first thing I did when I was younger, when I was maybe 10, 12 years ago, when I first made money, I just bought a house.
Yeah.
I bought a house. And I told myself, because I know how I am. I'm reckless. I'm the kind of guy, like, I'm a lunatic. I believe in things I want to do. So I will go for broke every time. I'll bet it all. Cash, I'm curious to you about like what does cash mean to you?
So because of a lot of trials and tribulations, I have less respect for cash than I have, and I run very cash lean.
There you go. Tom, I see cash complete. I heard Donald Trump say this. I heard Donald Trump say this, but you know what, too? Only certain people understand that. I know people.
I actually hate cash.
It's literally, it means nothing. It's on fire. It's literally burning. It's inflation's burning your cash.
Can I I don't know. I'm not in that buzz. I just in a good mood and chatting. Yeah. So not only do I don't have a lot of cash.
I'm feeling good, Tom.
We might have a live coming. Have you ever done a live?
Yeah, let's do it one day.
We'll do it one day. We will. So there's a little buzz pre-record. My debt as of today, all debt, houses and company and loans or whatever. I have seven figures in debt. Seven
You know
figures.
what, Tom?
7 figures. I have 7 figures in debt.
Tom, but you know what? I bet you're proud of it.
Oh, 100%.
You know what?
I didn't say how much I have in assets.
Yeah, but what I tell people, see, people think, I know people that might have $50,000 or even $100,000 cash in the bank.
Yep.
They brag.
Ooh.
They don't have a penny in an investment.
Correct.
They don't own a home. They're renting.
Yep.
All you have now, cash is an asset.
Yeah.
But you're put it this way. I think cash devalues at about 10% a year. It's real high right now because of inflation.
More now.
Yeah. So to make 1% profit on cash,
that's taxable. That's taxable.
Let's just say that cash devalues at 12% a year, or 10% a year. To make 1% profit, you have to find an investment with your cash that pays 11% to make 1%, because you're burning away 10.
Correct. Guaranteed, which you're not going to get.
Exactly. So I have no respect for cash. I'll burn that shit out. I don't care. But the reason I bought a house early, I got a
I'm not one of those guys.
Retirement.
Some business guys rent their primary home or put very little down and have their money like work for them. Mm-hmm. I do about 60% equity, and I do like to pay it off. That's why like the old school Italian to me comes in. The old school guy comes in and says, I don't like mortgages. I'm not a big mortgage guy, but I do accept mortgages and loans for businesses that are going to return money. And that's 70% of my, or 60% of my debt is from income producing activities. I would never have that debt load if it wasn't.
Yeah. And I tell you, I met a lot of, there's a different type of mind for the person that he's gone for something that is not easily understood. He don't care about going into debt. I was reading about.
I know 100%. 5,000 a month at least, maybe more, maybe not 6,000, but 5,500 just a month just goes towards servicing that debt.
Exactly. I heard Kanye West for years talking about this, where he was 50 million in debt, sweating, and now he hit that $1 billion mark. Right. But you know what? If you believe, I tell everybody, if you got passion for what you're doing and you're fearless and you're disciplined, you're going to get there.
That's right.
I don't care. So the reason I bought a house when I was young,
I got the right move.
I got a good retirement account.
God bless.
But Tom, I burned the bank account, the savings account down to, I'll burn it out. Yeah. I heard Donald Trump say this one time in an interview. I heard Donald Trump say, I have all this cash for the first time. I never had any cash. I was always taking the profits from one business and putting them into the next.
That's right.
It's a shame, but people value devaluing assets.
Correct.
and they undervalue.
That's right. Overproducing.
Yes, they undervalue.
This is where you're smart. This is where you're smart, and you're not wrong. But this is where you're smart. You're almost apologetic by having a home. The smart guys don't own. They actually rent. Or if they have a house, it's very like low key, and the rest of that money is used. But I'm still old school enough where I have a nice house. It's a nice house. I'm going to own it soon. And it's not the best investment to pay down the principal, to be honest. But I do, because I hate that note. Sometimes my old schoolness it conflicts with me being financially literate. But you're right, though. So we're gonna kind of go into the last part. What should people do? Okay, so we both agree at any level. Now, I want to preface this though, because I don't want you guys burning out your accounts. If you're single, you should take your top line expenses. I don't know if it takes you $10,000 to live, or if you're in Midwest, $5,000 to live. Park 6 months in an account that, God forbid, if you lost all your income and had no Social Security and no unemployment, 6 months in the bank. If you have one child, you do 10 months. And if you have 2 children and up, have 12 months, right? So that's gross living expenses in the bank. That's a cash I think RJ and I, or at least myself, recommend keeping, right? Now, the question is, what do you do with everything we aforementioned, right? Let's go through the W-2 employer first. What's your recommend to them at the macro level? Obviously, you don't get micro.
Well, that's me. So that's what my primary money that I make comes from, I'm professional. I have a job that I have an executive position, and I get paid a salary from that.
Which I missed, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I spend all my money on my art projects. So all my things I'm doing on the side is where my money goes into. But what I meant why reason is I bought a house when I was young is I always know home values typically keep going, they go up. So I'm a believer that put the money. So if I ever had a real problem, I can pool against my house. So I bought a house very, very young. I can pool equity from the house if I ever needed it.
That's actually, it's a piggy bank.
Yeah. So my house is like my emergency fund in many ways. I pay 6 extra. Sometimes I pay either a half or to a double payment every month.
Absolutely.
So I'm paying my house. I got most of my, I'll have my house paid off soon. I don't have a, so I pay more towards it every month.
So that'll be your piggy bank.
Yeah. So I don't care about cash though, because it's every year it's worth less and less. It's not smart to hold. I keep a cash. My goal, like, was exactly what you said. I always keep 6 months reserved in case I get into a car accident, you know, and I break both my legs and I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Like, you can keep things going. You don't want to live very close to the edge because you're always in a position of weakness at that point. You can't make any decisions. But if you're a wage earner, I always tell people, I think a wage earner should get a hard asset. Don't just pile up cash to look at it, because cash will not get you that. I look at cash as an object. You move it around into a place that's the most productive for you to make something off of.
Correct.
So I bought my house when I was 25 or 26.
God bless.
And I'll tell you a funny story, and I wouldn't share this if I wasn't on the juice, but I'll tell you this. This is going to be like a part 1 and a part 2 interview. It's so long.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Comment below Dave's book. It's David Meltzer. Dave's book. Of my 9, because I got to hold on to 1. Of the 9, I'll give 5 away. So that means you watched this that far. Dave's book. Comment below. The first 5, I'll get you Dave Meltzer's book on me.
All right. When I bought my house, when I was a lot younger, I'm 37 now, so I bought my house like 12 years ago. But I had no money left. I took everything I had to buy my house and literally had nothing left. And I had friends and stuff that said, "Why would you spend all your money on a house?"
That was me.
But the cash doesn't mean anything. People have such a value on cash.
Correct.
I talk to people who are very close to me. They have such a value of cash assets. Cash is just it's not even backed by anything. It doesn't mean anything.
When you're looking to acquire. But remember, up until recently, cash was very cheap to get. So what are you going to do? Buy cash and miss out on the opportunity when you can borrow for 3.5%? Now, interest rates are higher, so you may want to hold on to a little bit more, but do not over hoard on cash. I don't care. Even if you're a W-2 employee, do not over hoard on cash.
Donald Trump was a billionaire and had no cash, and he was saying it. But see, people can't understand that you can have an asset is something that you own. Correct. So it can be a piece of property, a bank account, stock value. It can be
anything. Yeah,
it can be so many things. So look at it as an asset. And what's the most valuable asset? Cash is not a valuable asset.
Correct.
So my point is, I spent all my cash reserves on a house. Yeah. Because the house usually keeps going up in value.
Correct.
So I had no money left after I bought my house. And what worked out for me is after I bought my house, the person I bought my house from was their new house wasn't built yet. And they said, hey, I'll pay you to stay in the house for an extra month until my house is built.
Yeah.
I said, oh, thank God I have some money. all I had was the rent money that they were going to.
That's sweet. That's a sweet story.
Some people would look at it like, damn, he's broke. He just spent all. I just converted my cash into real estate.
Right. No, but that's the right move though. But but to answer the question though, for W-2ers, right? I'll give my opinion, but what should they be doing now?
I think a W-2 person, I say they shouldn't buy anything
big,
anything that is that's depreciating. Don't go buy a fancy car. Yeah. Don't buy anything that's losing value. Save it up until it's enough to put into something that is appreciating.
Agreed.
And because the hardest thing is to get your first asset. That's the hardest asset is your first one. So after you got one, it's easier than get something else. It's easier for a bank to want to loan you money, work with you. I say get your credit. To me, when I was in business school, Tom, I had a professor tell me, next to the air you breathe, the most important thing is your credit.
Agreed. That's you need credit to get credit cards, to get the loans, to get better rates, to survive in this. So I agree. So one, make sure you have your stash, appropriate stash for your level. Number two, buy appreciating assets. I'll go one step further. This may be the time to get with your sister or your wife or somebody to open up the franchise. You still keep your job, but open up that Subway, open up that, whatever, the Quiznos, I want to go one step further. If you're doing okay financially, I would look through my P&L, my expenses, cut out some stuff, Netflix, this, that, save $500-600 a month, increase your 401k contribution, especially if they match it. Even if they don't, max out to the governmental 15%. They match it even better because this is a good time to get into the market. That's what I would do for W-2. What should the gig freelancers do in your opinion, RJ?
Those are the people I respect.
Strategy.
Those are the people. I mean, and I think I don't look down on nobody. I think everybody has their role. Everybody has their role that they play. There's a lifelong wage earner. There's gig workers. But I'm a believer that a wage earner, a W-2 earner, is a step one before your freedom. You use that to build. I think everybody got to build something.
Correct.
And I think everybody has the ability to build, because you don't want to. Well, I won't get too deep into it, but I think that the biggest problem with wage earning is that you get a consumer's mindset. You become a buyer.
Correct.
You buy. You get money. You buy. So you're always giving away your asset, and you don't own anything. A lot of wage earners struggle to save anything now. When inflation's real bad, like the way it is right now, everything costs a lot of money.
Remember, RJ, your house is not necessarily a true asset because you can't draw money from it, right? In that sense, meaning it's not like your house is worth, let's say, $500,000, right? You don't get income from it, right? So in that sense, from a business perspective, it's a liability, not an asset. Number two, you can't sell your job, right? But for a gig worker, it's a little different. So I want to focus a little bit and throw a little love and attention. What should the gig workers do?
I think the gig worker is more on the right path because that's closer to entrepreneurial and independence. So a gig worker, to me, it's always the same process no matter where you're at. Stack up.
Correct.
Spend. That's all I ever do, Tom. I stack up and spend it all.
But so it's a little bit of different. Okay, so I want to unpack this. So the first is for the gig worker, don't follow the path of the W-2 consumerism because you can't, right? Because you have the ebbs and flows. Cut down on monthly expenses, put expenses away, stack some chips so you can make some moves that can increase, maybe buy a rental house to augment that gig income, right? And then on top of it, for the gig workers, maybe reevaluate your prices and the markets that you're in. If you're a copywriter, maybe charge 8 cents a word, not 5 cents a word. You're a programmer, you could probably charge 75 an hour than 60 because of the compression with the job market. So I would reevaluate your fees, angle them up a little higher or inch them up a little higher, and like RJ said, stack chips till it's time to pounce. But for gig workers, a little different. Gig workers, you have to put every dollar you spend into something that's going to return either equity, return income for you, or return asset, because you're not a W-2 employee. You don't have that guaranteed income. So the investment vehicle and the investment angle is a little different. Okay. It's a little, now we're kind of go a little bit broader to the small business owner. What's your advice there? Because I'm listening, because I'm getting nervous.
Well, you know what? I think it's unfair for me. It'd be unfair to, because it'd be unfair for me to give advice to a small business owner because I don't own.
Got it.
A small business where it wouldn't be.
You own Black Hand Print Mafia.
I have Black Hand Print. I have LLCs, 2 of them.
There you
but
go.
I don't have enough. I'm more of an artist, Tom, than a business guy.
Your LLCs, you know your LLCs are. You ever see that scuba guy in the tank? He's underwater.
Tom, I tell you what saved me.
Listen,
titties and scotch.
my LLC, the one that's founded for X Factor, started in 2012. We're having our 10-year anniversary soon. The first 3 years, my company was the scuba man underwater with the bubbles, the fish food flying around. So you'll get there, my friend. To entrepreneurism, my friend.
Hey, Tom, this is the true definition of like, we started off all professional, sitting up straight, and now look at us.
Oh, we're getting you. You have no clue. So it's funny. So the knock on me, well, there's many. So again, I'm a numbers guy. I've done 300 shows in my first show, mostly audio, about 100 on the Butt Man. I'm probably north of about 60 or 70 here. I'm not even sauced, but I got sauced probably like 6 or 7 times. I'll admit it. But like 3% of the time on the new shows, 1% of the time on all the shows, and everybody has me as this big like drunkard. This is definitely not going to help, but it's kind of funny though, because I don't drink that much. That's the best part. Just had a kid. I was in and out of the hospital. I had a very pregnant wife. I'm on baby duty. I'm not sleeping these days, so I'm drinking a little bit of an adult beverage. But yeah, I'm gonna get shit for it, but I really don't care.
How many kids you got?
4.
Are they all with your current wife?
So no. So 2 from a previous marriage, 12 and 9, and then 2 with my current marriage.
But are you involved with all your kids?
Absolutely. So 2 live with me full time, and then 2 are roughly shared custody.
And you're an entrepreneur, like, and you don't work for nobody. You're independent.
I'm fully 2 LLCs. One is mailbox money. One's a passive. My family member runs it. Peels off like good money every month.
So you're living. So you have a wife.
Yes, beautiful wife.
She's what, like 10 years younger than you or something?
19.
There you go. So Tom, think about this. You're independent.
Yeah.
You decide when you want to go to sleep and when you want to wake up.
Correct.
You don't got to ask and take vacation. Ask for a lunch break. If it's snowing, you don't have to risk your life driving to work.
Correct.
You got a good relationship with all your children.
Beautiful.
You got a wife that's 19 years younger.
Doesn't hurt.
All right. You ain't hurting. You got a nice home. You're free.
Yeah, so, but you know what's funny though? I get like when I got involved a lot of the genre, I got like roasted. I've gotten like, but it's funny because it doesn't bother me if it's like meaning if somebody says something to me, right? And let's say it's true. That could, but it's an insecurity of mine. It would hurt my feeling. Oh, it's my beautiful son. Let me see, babe. Thomas Jr., beautiful. Hey, bello. Okay, bello. So it would bother me if somebody says something about me that's true, but like an insecurity. But when something says something that's not true, it doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? That's why I went through a lot of stuff, and I have thick skin, because if it doesn't bother me, if it's not true, it doesn't bother me. So I'm very happy, but it took me a while to get in this position. It wasn't like, overnight. And I'll be honest, RJ, I don't get me wrong, I work a lot in a sense where I'm intense, right? But I only work 4 or 5 hours a day. I'm not that like 60-hour-a-week entrepreneur. I don't need to be. It's inefficient for me. I have other people do it, or I get involved with the strategy and I get it done myself. But I don't kill myself, to be honest with you.
So what I'm saying, so my point I'm making to you is your life is great.
It's not bad. But again, it took a minute to get here. The road to get here was
yeah, so that's it. It doesn't matter.
A little bumpy,
like, it doesn't matter. So, that's what I always trying to keep in mind. Like, sometimes you got to judge your accusers. The people the people who are accusing you will probably trade lives with you. They would,
But what's funny, RJ, real quick on that front, when I was getting really, and I'm gonna like do a whole show on this, what I went through. People said I went bankrupt. They tried to go after my business. They tried to put bad, like all this crazy shit. Try to call my family, threaten my house, deliver pizzas to my stupid shit, right? So anyway, but I've been through a lot, right? And what I find funny is what I try to do, and kind of a little bit what we're doing today, is I'm the person who's like, I'm us, man. I'm like, grew up, my family came from Italy, 1959. My father left when I was 2, like one of 6 kids, middle class, only because my mother made us feel like middle class, really lower middle class to poor. But I only say middle class is because we never wanted for anything, because she made sure we never missed anything, right? And then I decided to work my ass off because I saw my single mother, right? And I was like,
are you self-made?
Pardon?
Are you self-made?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not. It's not familiar money at all. That's what's great. They think it's familiar. I'm like, my mother worked at a high school cafeteria. My mother was
okay. All right. I thought that you inherited money.
I must be the best marketer on the planet. So
you ain't some guy that inherited a windfall.
It gets worse. The little money I had from, like, she scraped and scratched, I kind of lost in a bad business deal, all of it.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not rap. I'm kind of ready. I'll talk to you offline and I'll do a show on it when I'm ready. Yeah. I did something in Forbes on it, but my point being, I'm 100% self-made. So what happened was, it was out of, my father left my mother, and I didn't want my mother to want to have to support me. So I had 2 paper routes when I was 10. I lied about my age.
I had 2 paper routes, Tom. At 13, I had 2 paper routes. I got up every morning at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning at age 13 years old.
Right.
That's how I made my first, and I saved it all the time. I saved my money. I
used to make $13 every 2 weeks, and I would be able to put $3. My mother let me keep 3 to go to the candy store, and I had to put 10 in the bank every 2 weeks, right? So my mother wanted me to be financially independent. When I graduated high school, right, I actually, in high school, went the route of I was going to do a trade. I doubled, triple classes, so I do a work study. I got a work study to get into this big corporation, Sharing Plow, which is now Merck. So I got into this big corporation, but I still wanted to educate myself. So I worked like 50 hours a week for my undergraduate. I did my undergraduate at night. So in 4 years, I did it full time, or I worked it full time. And the only reason I have
Same here, Tom. Same here. I got my bachelor and my master's.
My master's working full time. Yep.
I got my bachelor's and master's working, and I mean going in the evenings, working full time during the day. So cheers to that, Tom. Cheers to that.
That's a different breed, my friend.
It's not easy, Tom.
And you know what?
Not easy.
And you know what? I went to school in Rutgers, Newark, and I would sit there, and I would, like, I'll give you an example. I remember I went to Rutgers, New Brunswick for a semester or 2, and because I had a girlfriend at the time who went there, and I would be at the 6:30 class after working, after like everything, and it'd be like 6:30, and some kid is like strolling in his sandals, smoking pot next to you, like, hey, bro, did I miss anything? And then when I go to school at Rutgers, Newark, I would be with mostly women, believe it or not. not men, mostly women, and many of which had children who brought their kids to class. And I sat there and said to myself, I said, I'm like lucky to be able to work and come here. This woman has a kid. She has a family, and she's here to get an education. What the fuck am I doing? Why am I? What am I wasting myself? Why am I not focusing in and educating myself?
Yeah.
And that's where I decided to get that. And then I didn't want to stop. I wanted to get my master's, and they paid for my master's. You want to hear something fucking crazy? Is one Saturday while I went to a class for my master's, my mother was home invaded. She was 77 years old, Italian woman. She passed, years later. But this was a tough fucking broad. The guy kicked open the door. She goes, "My son's home." I was at school. Held a knife to her neck and goes, "Where's the money? Where's the money?" You know what she says all the time?
To your mom.
Yeah. She goes, "If you're gonna kill me, you're gonna kill me anyway. So what's the difference?" And she didn't tell him. And he took off with some jewelry and some cursory stuff, and yeah.
Wow.
And I fucking was at my MBA class on a Saturday, which I normally would have been home, and it wouldn't have happened because he probably would have heard me. Or at the bare least, I would have worked to defend my mom. So my point being is I did a lot to get where I am. And that's why I have the Armchair MBA, because it's supposed to be a symbol of what I've done and a little bit of tongue-in-cheek for my team. Armchair is kind of like the money more to quarterback, that kind of stuff. And I'm proud of where I am. And there's people that want to take you down. They want to just de minimis, right? They want to minimize you.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what, Tom? The fact that you didn't go away, that you're still here, you keep going no matter what you go through. Yep. Like me, I'm real good, and I got good mentors. Everybody around me who's ever mentored me, they're typically at least 40 years older than me. So since I was a kid,
I want to hear, where did you work? How did you work? Share. I know you're a little more private, but share where you can on because I don't know that, but I didn't know you worked full time while you got your education.
So I come out of complete desperation and poverty. I mean, I come out of the lowest level you can come out of poverty. I mean, nothing. I was out on my own since I was a young teenager. I didn't take care of myself since I was 10, 11 years old. I hadn't always provided for myself. So, but I got always, since I was a young kid, I had much, much older mentors. I always had a thing for older people. I don't know what it is. I always ask them questions and stuff. So when I was very young, I had a neighbor across the street who was an older Italian man, and he was just the neighborhood guy who I could make some money shoveling snow from off his porch or mowing his lawn or whatever. But he got me into a a private golf club, and that's where I met all kind of people. He was a member that got me a job there when I was 15, but I knew him since I was like 6.
Yeah.
So my point I'm trying to make is my first mentor was 50 years older than me. Yeah. My second mentor, and it's all more super rich guys, millionaires, very wealthy business owners, stuff like that. My second mentor was probably the wealthiest man in my county, or he was. Mentored me from age 15 until I was in throughout my 20s. My current mentor is Joost Elfers.
That's
the guy that published the 48 Laws of Power.
I got their other book, the Human Laws of Nature.
Yeah. So the guy who discovered him, Robert Greene, he's my mentor. Everything the story is Robert Greene was walking in Italy and Robert Greene had a tough life at that point. He had dozens and dozens of jobs. He was struggling in life. He wasn't feeling good about himself. And Robert Greene was just walking in Italy with this man named Joost Elfers. And Joost says to Robert, they were working on something out there. And Joost says, "Do you have any ideas for a book?" Joost is a big book producer at the time. He published major big bestsellers, 10 grand, bunch of big books.
Oh, sure.
And he says to Robert, do you have any ideas for a book? And Robert says, you know, I have this idea in my mind about power.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I got this idea about power, and like, because Robert had like dozens and dozens of jobs and he hated working for people, but he would watch all these games people would play in business.
Wow.
And what Robert said is, well, hey, I have this idea of seeing all this stuff I'm seeing. It just gives me this idea about this book about power. And Yost, who's a mastermind thinker, said, Robert, what a great idea. I'll show you him in a probably can't see it real well.
Oh,
that's me and Yost Elfers.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that's the man who discovered Robert Greene.
And that's the guy who discovered RJ Roger.
That's the guy who discovered RJ Roger. So anyway, so Yost says to Robert, hey, I will pay you to write that book, 48 Laws of Power. And then that's 1998. That's a long time ago. That's 95 actually.
Gotta Google how many copies sold.
It sold. It still sells 1,000, probably 1,000, 2,000 copies a day right now.
Jesus Christ!
It sold probably 10 million copies or something crazy.
1.2 million copies.
Well, that's a long time. It's millions now. It's probably 4 or 5 million, 6 million, if not more.
Oh yeah, this is Wikipedia, which is probably categorically wrong.
Yeah, it still sells out right now. If you look on Amazon right now, it's probably still top 100, top 50 book.
I read it. I circled it. I did the audio book. My buddy had Robert Greene on his podcast.
Yeah, Robert Greene. I don't know Robert Greene.
He does a fair amount of press. And if you catch him at the right time, our level should be able to get him. Like, obviously, if you leverage your relationship, it's different. But I'm saying if I go to my buddy and get his publicist's email, I got like a 50-50 shot on it. I'd be a little nervous talking to Robert Greene. I'm not going to lie to you.
I reached out to Robert a couple times because Robert Greene is my first hero.
Yeah.
Which is weird that I ended up meeting Yost. So I'm an avid reader. But
I can tell.
If you see here, I have every book.
Yeah.
I got every book, Robert Greene.
Yeah, so hold on. I didn't even see I didn't even see the third one, right? Don't say anything yet. First one is War. Second one is Power. Third is Art of Seduction. Show everybody so they see my bullshit.
33 strategies.
War, yeah. Power. Seduction.
But hold on. He wrote another book.
Hold on, let me see it from afar. Oh, 50th Law or 50 Cents. Yeah.
This was actually the book that inspired me to write my book, The Olive Branch.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that's the book that inspired that. But I have his other book. I have Mastery. I have the Laws of Human Nature. So he was just a mastermind thinker to me.
So Robert Greene, I have up there with Malcolm Gladwell. And me, I mean, you may put Robert higher than Malcolm, but I have Malcolm Gladwell and Robert Greene on par, in my opinion.
I think Robert Greene is the most brilliant mind since Machiavelli, the Stoics. Like, I think he's brilliant. I think he's a brilliant.
At the bare minimum, he aggregates exquisitely. Like, meaning he takes some of Sun Tzu, some from the Prince.
Exactly.
At the bare, that's on his worst day. Let alone he gives his own interludes, and they're amazing.
I completely agree. Now I got a personal relationship with Yost. I love Yost Elfers. He's he's my hero. He's done, and I never had no Yost and I. It's just coincidental. I grew up on Robert Greene, reading his books. I started writing my 36 Rules of the Bosses. I wear it on my neck, 36.
Shit.
My book that you did a video on. Yeah. So
I don't have it. I don't have the book here. It's
right here.
Yeah.
The Olive Branch. My 36 Rules of the Bosses. If I'm being honest, Robert Greene was an inspiration to me
That's amazing.
I wrote the 36 Rules of the Bosses.
I
never had plans on reaching out to those people. What's that?
My book. I gotta send you.
Okay.
Yost
Alfers, the guy who founded Robert Greene, my book got into his hands.
Oh shit.
Yost Alfers contacted me and said, I read your book, The Olive Branch. I like it. I want to republish it with a slightly new twist.
Oh shit.
He discovered me. So my book that's coming out, The Don, Yost Alfers is going to publish that book.
That is insane.
So it's just crazy.
Well, I don't know if you saw my Sammy interview, and I know people they got criticized for it, but he talked about. Thank you. He talked about how Toto was his mentor and how important that was to learn Cosa Nostra from him. I talked to him probably a good 5 minutes about the importance of mentorship and why it's kind of a lost art. And Sammy kind of weighed in on it, and I really recommended it. Like, he really endorsed it because he sat down with Toto, who knew like the likes of Lucky Luciano, possibly Costello, Al Capone. Like, I was weirded out talking to somebody that knew these guys. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like 4 levels of Kevin Bacon or whatever. But yeah, that's why mentorship is so critical, and it needs to be part of the package. Well, listen, my wife's gonna kill me. Your wife's probably like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" If you stayed on this far, like I said, just drop Dave's book. 5 of them are gonna be given away by me. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead. When RJ's book is released, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to keep you on the list, and I'm going to send you the first 5 versions. I'll get RJ to sign and get you his book.
I'll tell you what, Tom, let me get in on this. If you drop a hashtag, the olive branch.
Perfect. We'll give him 5 olive branches.
RJ will send you 5. I'll send out 5 autographed copies. I don't care where you're at in the world.
We'll do it.
I'll send you an autographed copy for free.
I think it's scary that somebody would watch us talk for 2 hours and 6 minutes, but fuck it. You earned that book if you went that far.
We might have to do this one all over again. But hey.
You ain't kidding. Now, this is a fun one. You got to have fun with this. That's the other thing, too. We talked a little bit about, like, the MBAs in us. Look at what we're doing as a P&L. And I am looking at the podcast a little differently. I'm going to try to monetize a little better. If you found some of this useful, check out the store, Armchair MBA store. Buy a few things. It helps the store. Get the cops some merchandise. Give some gifts out. But the truth of the matter is, this is what counts. Like you said, it's not the income, it's the outcome. And I think we produced some good outcome tonight.
Tom, I appreciate you coming on. I always enjoy talking to you. I think we think alike. I'm in Manhattan all the time. Let's have
next
dinner.
time you're there, give me a little notice. I have the little ones. We'll do one or two things. Either I'll meet you there, or if you could come closer to me, only because I have a little bit of a geofence around me. Either way, we're going to do it soon, my friend.
We'll do that too. I'm only a couple hours away from, like 2 hours away from you. So I'm there 4 or 5 days a month. So
I'll make it worth it to take the trip. So listen, Thank everybody. Check out RJ Black Hand Mafia. Put the link below.
Black Hand Print.
Black Hand Print Mafia. What did I say? Black Hand Print. Black Hand Print Mafia. The Black Hand Print Mafia. And thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.